A Labour-run city council sparked fury after they banned all meat products from meetings, instead forcing plant-based options on town hall events. Oxford City Council's decision followed a unanimous vote. It's been branded a knee-jerk reaction and a kick in the teeth for farmers, which I quite like. I don't know how far your knee has to go up to kick somebody in the teeth, but leaving that to one side, the motion was proposed by Labour Party councillor Paula Dunn, following in the footsteps of Oxfordshire City Council, which became the first authority to do so in December 2021. The council unanimously voted in favour of following the county council's lead by ensuring that food provided for internal council events are entirely plant-based. I'm delighted to be joined now by Carys Bennett, who is the Corporate Projects Manager at PETA. Carys, thank you for joining us this evening. I imagine you're in favour of what Oxford City Council has done.
It's absolutely wonderful that this was a unanimous vote for all food served to be vegan. But they aren't the first council to have done so. You mentioned Oxfordshire County Council, but there's also been Lewisham, there's been Exeter, there's been town councils, county councils. Also, Helsinki doesn't serve meat or dairy at council functions. Amsterdam City Council has gone veggie. There is so much action all around the world because we know the climate impact of farming animals for food is tremendous. Up to 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from animal farming. So it's time that all councils started doing this all around the world.
All right, but wasn't there a council that did this and they had to throw away all their food because everyone thinks it's disgusting and they like a bit of meat and they like a bit of butter and they like a bit of cream?
Well, sometimes traditions can be hard to change, but we've absolutely got to grasp this. We're running out of time. The United Nations is urging a shift to plant-based diet. So this is something councils can do.
But shouldn't you allow people choice? Don't you want to allow people choice and freedom? And, you know, I enjoy foie gras and I enjoy cream and I want to eat these things, that they're delicious and they provide a good economy for our farmers.
Well, councillors can choose what to eat in their own homes and when they go to cafes and restaurants, of course. But at council meetings, the council has climate action plans. They have goals to reduce their carbon footprint. And we know that eating a vegan diet can reduce your carbon footprint of food by 73%. It's really important, and if councils are going to act on their goals, they should all be doing this.
What? But why should we force people to eat horrible food? I mean, my children don't like their vegetables to start with, and I sympathise with them. What people want is to eat meat and dairy products, which are absolutely delicious, and support so much of our agricultural industry, which is becoming greener and greener with modern farming methods.
It's not all salads nowadays. There's a certain vegan sausage roll that's available everywhere. And more farmers
that sounds so horrible.
Plant-based farming. There has been a real big change, and it's continuing to happen with farmers growing things like oat to make oat milk. They're growing beans and pulses in order to have vegan burgers made from pea protein, made from wheat protein, and it is so much better for the environment.
OK, but one final thing. If you're a vegan, why do you want to pretend you're eating a sausage roll?
Well, I grew up eating meat, and most people did, so people want to eat what's familiar to them. And actually, when places like Burger King have a vegan burger, as they're doing now, and McDonald's, that is saving the suffering and stopping, you know, hundreds of thousands of animals from being bred and being killed and dying an agonising death in the slaughterhouse. So if that's going to help animals,
thank you.
Prevent climate change and be healthier for people, it's a win-win all round.
Well, I'm not sure I'm convinced, but Carys, thank you so much. Carys Bennett of PETA there. Now we've had our green PETA and we have our red PETA, but I prefer my steak blue PETA.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for coming on again. Do you think this is a reasonable thing for councils to do, or they should just allow people choice?
I think it's reasonable. I gave up meat 20 years ago, although I'm not a fully fledged vegan, so personally I've got a lot of sympathy for it. As your previous guest said, people living in Oxford and Oxfordshire can still buy, shop and dine wherever they like and eat whatever they like, so I don't think it limits choice. But I'd actually make a broader point, which is cast your mind back 20 or 30 years. Labour councils did lots of other things that were described as a loony left, whether that was around black rights or about things like congestion charges and creating disincentives against car usage. They were called mad 20 or 30 years ago, and now there's a broader degree of public acceptance for them.
Well, I think the anti-motorist war is absolutely mad now. I haven't changed my view on that at all.
But I'm sure you'd agree with a much greater push for black rights as we had in the 80s.
Queen Victoria led the way in being anti-racist, actually, if you look at her behaviour, and that's long before Labour councils were doing it. Neil, come on, you're a farmer. Yes. You can't possibly want to be limited in what you can sell as a farmer.
No, I think it is a matter of choice and then good local food. I mean, I probably should declare an interest. I've got Devons, Herefords, Lincoln Reds. They graze on permanent pasture. That holds the carbon in the soil. You produce a very good red meat that fattens on grass. What is better than that? You've got milk and cheese, as you rightly say, all produced locally. I mean, you take almond milk, for instance. It's hugely bad for the environment, travels miles before we get here. So I think, give people choice, and if they have a choice, I have a niece who's a vegetarian, and I say, Sophie, it's great the vegetables, but I could do with just a little bit of meat with it. And I think this is the issue. If people want to have and you see, the carbon that's held in permanent pasture is the same as you capture by 20 years of growing trees. And I think people forget this. And if you've got good permanent pasture, you've got greater biodiversity. We can actually, as you say, we are producing policies now which we're farming in a greener way. So give people choice, let them have some meat and dairy if they choose to do so. Why is it when there's a majority of people in this country that still eat meat and dairy products, are councils basically banning you from having that at meetings?
And that's the point, isn't it, Peter, that people do still like eating meat, that councils are there to reflect the people who elect them, and that you may think it's very good not to eat meat. It may be very virtuous, I wouldn't happen to agree, but should you enforce your virtue on other people?
I do accept that the role of politicians is to show leadership rather than just ape or imitate my own views. But I think the council is showing leadership, and I think it can still stimulate the farming community and the rural economy. Yeah, we have a lot of arable farming. Neil will know a lot more about it than I do. Of course, farmers can make a huge contribution to a vegan diet and continue to do so. So I think the idea that just a small number of meetings that one might be fortunate enough to attend, that you don't have a pork pie, I don't think there's a direct line to the collapse of British farming.
Where Neil and I are, in Somerset, if you took away the dairy industry, the land would not be farmed. It's not going to be turned over to arable, is it? Yeah, I mean, you're much more
You see, the thing is that you take the west of the country, right from Scotland, right down through north of England, Wales, into the West Country. Most of it is permanent pasture. That is not, you don't actually, with the biodiversity, we don't actually want that land to be ploughed up. A lot of it shouldn't be ploughed up anyway. And so therefore it produces a very good grass that then creates a very good protein for us to eat. And I think, if you look at the amino acids that we need in our bodies, some of the vegan diets are very difficult to get those final amino acids that we need. And I think, you don't have to eat a lot of meat, but I think eating meat, I'm probably an example.
I want to eat a lot of meat.
I'm an example. You can see by my physique that Jacob, I do eat a little meat and I do eat a little food. But seriously, I think, if we want to actually keep people healthy, then I think some red meat, chicken, all of these things, along with vegetables. I don't go to war with people who want to be vegans and want to be vegetarians. But for goodness sake, let's be realistic that we need those livestock to keep our countryside in the way we want it.
Isn't that right, that we are actually omnivores and therefore people need to eat meat? It's part of our diet since the beginning of mankind.
Well, it's part of our diet in the West. I suspect there are people in other cultures in the Far East who might take a different view. And I also want to pick up on some of Neil's points. I think there's a danger that we use some kind of language of Armageddon. We're not at war with each other, and one or two councils...
But you
hold
are,
on,
you are when you've done
Neil,
it.
you had quite a long answer.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
One or two councils taking meat, well, literally off the agenda for their meetings, I don't think is a major issue. You can still get a pork pie or a roast beef any way you like in Oxfordshire. So choice thrives.
Well, thank you both very much. I will still be having my roast beef for Sunday lunch.